Guys, welcome back to Nagendra Nayak Narratives. I know it's been a while that I've not been posting videos on a regular basis. My mom has gone through a surgery and she needs to take a good bed rest for quite some time. So that is the reason why me and dad have been trying to manage things at home. There have been a lot of things that has been running in my head and wanted to share some of the things with you. So today's topic is going to be the older generation versus the newer generation. So we've often been, hearing a lot of things. This is not just me, but okay. Disclaimer is that this might be very relevant to Indian context and might not be for anybody else as much as it is for the Indians. Most of the times, we've heard some really common phrases like, "What is happening to this generation?" People are only engrossed with the mobile phones and that is what they invest their time in. One thing. The second thing is anything you ask, why is this done? Oh, you people have always been, habituated to questioning the practices. The practices are there because that is how it is supposed to be. Nobody answers your questions. And even when it comes to, bringing up the child, it's okay. I mean, I would consider myself as the third generation post-independence. My grandparents must have been the first one, and then my parents, and then me. So, at least people from my generation who bring up their kids always get to hear this thing most often. You people don't know how to bring up kids. Anytime the kid, the child is restless or the child is not eating food or anything like that, you hand over a mobile phone to the child and you just shy away from your duties. There are certain other things also, maybe like as I told you, this is not a scripted video, so as in when I come across some thoughts while I speak, let me address those. So with these things, it has always been a trend that the older generation blames the younger generation. I am not saying that we are moving towards a different line of society, but then am I the only person to be blamed for it, is the question. I'm sure a lot of people would relate to this. Let's start from the first one. So the first one is, you guys are always occupied with the cell phones. There's nothing really outside that you often go to see or you experience. You don't want to experience something in real life, but you only want to be a part of the virtual life. I agree. I remember the times when my generation were kids, or even the previous generation for that matter. There was a lot of open space that was available, and parents found it very secure to let people go out, play in the colony with the other people around and all this stuff. So what used to happen was, we used to wait for our vacations, not to sit and watch television, but to go out and make the maximum utilization of our vacations on the ground. So this used to happen. Now with the urbanization and the cities being spread in such a way, how often are the parents comfortable or feel safe to let their kids go by themselves to an open place? First of all, how many open spaces are available? That's the first question. But even if even if that is available, you need to cross a road, or you need to go through a busy street for that matter. And when all these happen, parents are always in a panicky mode to let the kids go by themselves. And then you need to be accompanied every single time if the kid needs to go out to play. The size of the family is shortening. It is getting more nuclearer and nuclearer, if that is a word. But then, who's there to take care of the kids? So there's nobody. And if to sustain your life or to sustain your lifestyle, you would require both the people to go out to work. Given these conditions, how often do you have that opportunity to, let your kids go out and play? First thing. The second thing, maybe you or your parents, how did they grow up? What did they listen to? Or what were they taught or what were they told when they were kids? Mostly, I'm sure most of you guys would relate to this. Mostly, we were always, brought up with the stories from our grandparents. So, this is what we have always been brought up with. And that link or that the chain broke when the first generation ended. With the second generation, that is our parents, I mean, how often have you heard your parents actually telling you stories that grandparents had told you? And anytime you actually go back and ask them questions, you remember I told you they complain or they blame us or they accuse us of questioning every practice just to not practice it. But then whenever you go and ask them what is this practice particularly for, the only answer is, why are you rebelling? This is supposed to be that way, so don't ask questions, just follow. I mean, don't you think the knowledge is lost somewhere? And if a right reason is given to me, I would be more likely to follow these practices than just to tell me that it's so practice it. So there is some gap, I think. And also when it comes to the kids, using cell phones most often, of course, you're not allowed to go out. There's nobody else to take care of you, or there's nobody else to take you out to play in the open. So the next best thing that you can do is actually go out, use a cell phone and try to watch anything that is possible. Internet is the only easily accessible playground these days, if I need to put it that way. Imagine when I was being brought up, my grandmom used to tell me stories from books. She used to read out a lot of storybooks to me, or she used to recite stories from Ramayana, Mahabharata, and all those things. And there was an interest that was developed in me as well. Okay, it is not just that they were feeding for no reason and there was no reciprocation happening from the other side. But when these stories were told, somewhere it has ingrained and it has remained throughout. And I still cherish, I am sure a lot of you, once post 30s or something like that, you would always, recollect those memories of your grandparents, feeding you food while they tell you stories about, the scriptures and all these things. And we used to really enjoy that. And that is the reason why we still miss it. But our parents probably do not have that story. I don't blame them for that particularly. The reason is the employment structure changed in the previous generation, which is why people started moving out of their families to earn their livings, because of which they were more invested on earning the living and taking care of the materialistic things. And there was a complete disconnection, because of which they themselves did not gather enough, or these must have been forgotten. I am sure they had their grandparents and parents telling them stories like ours did to us. But then the gap has been so much that they have forgotten a lot of things. And today, if you ask them to tell you a story, suddenly they say, what story? And they might probably, make up stories from out of some movie or anything around. But that was not the case with our grandparents, if you remember. You just had to tell them, or you just had to ask them to tell you a story, and they would have hundreds of stories ready for you. And especially if that would have made you eat, nothing like it. So they would have just, bombarded you with stories. Doesn't happen these days. The only purpose of making this video was I'm sick and tired of the older generation only blaming us for what we are today. And we are not at a bad spot, okay? The technology has developed tremendously today, because of which there are a lot of other things that we are able to do, which they were not able to do. Now, the lack of technology is what let them or allowed them to do things what they used to do. It is not because there was an option they had, but yet they chose the other thing compared to this. No, it was never like that. So, your lack of technology or lack of options that you had cannot be equated to you have options and yet you have to choose the traditional way only. I am not saying don't choose the traditional way. I mean, we have a very rich culture, we have a lot of things to learn, and definitely going out and doing physical activity, meeting people in person, talking to them, having a good time in the evening after your school time and all these things, these are really important things. But maybe they've not remained as the only things that you can do when you're given an option. Where I am kind of sick and tired to listening to this all the time. Our parents blaming us about the wrong upbringing of our kids, or the way we lead our life, and the complete onus of this transition being upon us. My only purpose is, I mean, this may appeal to people of different age groups in different ways, but then the only point is, I understand we have our flaws, like every other generation would have, but please accept the fact that you do have your flaws too, and if something has fallen short, like you always love to take credits for our success, do take credits for the failures as well. Don't completely take the blame on yourself, but don't entirely blame it upon us either. When I talk to people personally, I see a lot of people having gone through this, but then people have this apprehension of being vocal about this, right? What would people think? Oh, society is designed in this way. If you go against the common norms and you have to speak something which is not in a standard structure that is acceptable, people might not accept me and stuff like that. I don't really think that should matter. I would say, if you have an opinion about this topic, please do write in the comment section. As I always tell you, it can be supporting the argument or even against the argument, but please do comment, do speak, because there are issues. I will bring up certain issues like these are issues that needs to be addressed. Okay, I mean, the first part of improving yourself is accepting where you're falling short. So unless you do that, I don't know, I don't see another way to improve things. So this is my submission in the video. I hope you like the video. I hope you like the content, and let's see. I'll come with more contents like these. And okay, by the way, Dad's been cooking these days, so I might actually end up making a few videos of Dad cooking as well. So it is going to be fun, and Dad has his amazing one-liners. So let's see what is in the basket. Anyways, thank you so much for watching Nagendra and Nayak Narratives. Stay tuned for other contents. Bye bye.